Good everyone, I'm going to this video, and today we have a Spade review of the Po-2, of all things. I bet you're wondering how the hell did Joe get his hands on it? Well, during the Halloween event, I decided this year was going to be the year that I finally add the Po-2 to my collection. For those of you that don't know, I own the TB3, and this was the last aircraft apart from the XP-55 that I wanted to add to my War Thunder collection. Now, over the many years of playing this game, I've only seen the Po-2 a handful of times, and well, I can sort of understand why, but we'll go into that later. And realistically, if you're not Dita, or if you want to be the next Dita, or if you're not a collector, I wouldn't advise going for this thing in the Halloween events, because you're not really benefiting a huge amount from it. But I mean, if you're a collector like me, get it. I mean, you'll feel 10 years older. I mean, I feel like I'm in my 30s now because of this bloody thing, and I feel like I've grown a full beard because of how slow this thing is. Now, don't get me wrong, this thing can certainly work in a ground forces scenario. In an aerialistic scenario, which is where I spaded it, no, this thing is not for ARB. If you're going to use this thing, just use it in ground forces. In ARB, it is just a sitting duck. Yes, the ray gunner can get the occasional jet kill, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to say. And yes, the maneuverability is actually quite good because it is a biplane. But realistically, and plus I don't want to lie, this thing is not like worth it. Really, this thing is just not. Um, it certainly is a interesting aircraft. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the Po-2 has a very interesting history, being the only biplane to actually score. Well, I say score; it was more of a maneuver kill. Um, it actually scored a maneuver kill, which was like given to the crew on a F-94 Starfire that tried to slow down to the Po-2's pace, and it ended up stalling and crashing, and the kill was credited. Although that is debated in terms of like the kill actually being credited. The Po-2 is best described as well, for aerialistic at least, the best use you're going to get out of this thing is a base bomber. This this thing doesn't have a very good payload for that, but using the 650 kilogram bombs, you're going to get more result for the most part. You're going to get 0.06 more of a ton than you are with the two 100s and the two 50 kilogram bombs. Because don't let the bomb size fool you. Turns out when I did the math, the 650 kilogram bombs with the explosive, because remember it's based off explosive now, actually worked out 0.06 better, which could have potentially killed me a base in my first run, but it ended up not being the case. But even so, I'm just finally glad to have this thing in my collection. But if you're not a dealer, if you want to be the next dealer, or if you are not a collector, I wouldn't advise going through the trouble of grinding the Halloween event because it just takes too long, and staying in the top 1000 is actually pretty hard. But even so, before we continue, we'll quickly go over the aircraft just in general. It is powered by one of the weakest engines that I've seen attached to an aircraft, the Shvetsov M11D 5-cylinder radial. It's an air-cooled engine which doesn't have WEP, and its maximum power is 120 horsepower. To put that in perspective, I've been in normal family cars that have more horsepower. So, yeah, this thing is certainly not rated for its horsepower. But in ground forces, this thing's glide characteristics are very good. And I'm fairly certain there's going to be people who got this thing from this year's Halloween event and are going to cut the engine and do it Night Witcher style in ground forces. If so, good luck to you. But otherwise, this thing's going to remain parked, and I'm not sure if I'm going to include it in the rare vehicle series. I might do. I'll certainly see about it, but I just don't want to feel old again. In terms of your defensive gunner, you have a single 7.62 cast machine gun. Pretty alright coverage to say this is it's quite a tight aircraft in terms of like the fuselage. It's not got the greatest vertical guidance, but horizontal isn't too bad. It does about 30 degrees either side, which isn't bad, but it certainly could be better. The problem is the 7.62 goes through its 200 rounds very quickly, and once it does, you're gonna have to wait for a reload. And if you've been attacked by a plane, that's not gonna help you. Final point, recommended belt for the 7.62 is armored targets. You get 10mm of penetration with 3 API and 1 APIT. The default rounds are not worth it, and the unis are debatable at best. In terms of bomb load, you have access to 6 50kg bombs, which is the bomb load I recommend for base bombing. You have access to 2 50kg and 2 Fab, 100kg bombs. I was going to say Fab 100 and Fab 50, but I changed my mind halfway through. And you also get access to 2 Fab 100s on their own. So for base bombing, 6 50s. For killing tanks and memeing, 2 50s and 250, or 2 100s and 2 50s. That's what you're going to need to go for. But since this was a Spade review, technically speaking, I wanted to throw up the table, which we're all familiar with. But obviously, if you are new to the channel, the way I do my Spade reviews now is I use a table, and we go into more in depth about how the vehicle performed and how I managed to get along with the vehicle and what the matches were like. So we're going to cut to my desktop and we're going to take a look at how the matches went for this vehicle. I'll see you in a couple. So you joined me on my desktop, and as you can see, we had just merely 2 battles to Spade the Po-2. I know some people are going to get triggered by the Russian flag. It was just easier to set it up that way. There's no point using the Soviet flag. I just decided to use the modern Russian flag for my Russian Spade reviews. So, as you can tell, Battle 1, which is the battle you're going to be seeing today, is 0 air kills, 6 ground kills, no assist, I didn't die, 2,137 Silver Lions, 2,147 RP, and just over 1.13 tons of base bomb dropped. Exact value is 0.138. Battle 2. No air kills, no ground kills, no assists, didn't die, 1,595 Silver Lions, 291 RP, and a 0.137 base bombing. Now that would have been higher, as I did use the 650s in that battle, however it was only a 1.7 game, not a 2-0. Otherwise I would have gotten the slightly more tonnage than the first match. But otherwise, that is all you need to know in terms of the Spade of the aircraft. It was very quick, or well, I say quick. As you're going to see in the battle, it took forever to get to target, but realistically, the majority of people are going to use this in ground forces, so most of what I say in this review is probably going to be exempt. Anyway, let's cut to the gameplay, and we will showcase what the vehicle is like to fly. I'll see you in a couple. And welcome back. I actually had a small technical issue. Turns out I saved the wrong replay file and ended up deleting this replay file, but luckily I hadn't cleared my recycle bin, so I was able to find the replay. But that's just me being an idiot. So, as you can tell, in the Po-2 you get a bomber spawn in Air Realistic. You also get the same in Air Arcade. Not Air. Well, yeah, Air Arcade. I was about to say Tank Arcade then, but even so. Tank RB, I believe you get I think it's like 6,000 feet for your spawn. I'm not particularly sure. But this battle really told me what this thing was like to fly. So as you can tell, I'm being very careful with the throttle and being very careful with the aircraft itself. Testing it in the test flight before I actually took it out showed me that this thing rips very easily, and it has a top speed of about 127 in the dive at higher altitudes, and its low altitude speed is about 117 miles an hour in terms of the safe speed. Anything past that will give you the point where your aircraft starts to rip apart and or possibly lose parts that are important. Now, as you can tell, I'm putting this thing into a steep dive. This is where I'm already getting reduced speed warnings. I've been very careful with the aircraft. And as you can tell by the replay timer, it's going to take me a long time to get down there. So what we're going to do is, we're going to jump ahead because I got enough grey hairs flying this thing to the point where I'm actually going to go shave after I've finished recording this video. To the point where I just feel old flying this thing now. I feel like I've aged 10 years. As fun as it is to finally have the Po-2 in my collection, I feel like I'm 30 now. Like, seriously, I feel like I'm in my 30s. That gives you an idea. And I don't want to be in my 30s yet. I want to wait a bit. So that gives you an idea. So after getting the Po-2 very carefully towards the deck, you do get a bombsite, which is pretty luxurious. Well, I say luxurious. It's the same as every single bombsite in the bloody game, but it's just nice to have a base or a dive. Well, not a dive bombing. I'm an idiot. What I meant was a bombsite, because then you don't have to dive bomb at the slow speeds that you have. And as you'll notice, we didn't actually kill that base. I reckon if we had the 650s, we probably could have. That's why I'm advising to run the 650s, because situations like that could happen. So we then spend the next couple of minutes flying towards these ground targets, and as you can tell, most of the biplanes down there are already working over the majority of the ground targets. But they're kind of going to leave some for me, which I'm kind of happy about. Because I didn't want to fly this thing all that much, I just wanted to experience it. And I've already found a pretty decent tactic. As you can tell, I've reduced the throttle and I'm rolling the aircraft. Artillery kill number 1. The main reason for that is the gun in the back only gets 5 degrees of gun depression, so you have to take that into consideration. And given it's only got 200 rounds, again, you have to be very careful. Now these anti-aircraft guns can be dangerous to you, so you have to be very careful about them. That's why I recommend trying to at least take out one or both of these guns. There goes one. That's my second ground kill for this match. And as I open fire on the second one, I actually run out of ammunition. The rear gun is now on the reload. That really gives you an idea of just how little ammo your back gunner actually has. But yeah, this thing was certainly a grey hair inducer. For those of you that don't have the Po-2, and like I say, you can get it every year at Halloween, you just need to come in the top 1,000 on the leaderboard in order to unlock this aircraft. Another artillery kill there. Going for another one for number 4. And we're going to turn back round and get that AAA piece that's currently shooting at us. But as you can tell, the handling of this thing is very awkward. The rudder is very strange. It's more like an air brake than a rudder. It doesn't feel like it has a proper working rudder. And, well, I mean, as long as I can kill the AAA piece before it kills me, I'll be happy. And there we go. Now I know what you're thinking. You don't see any more on the minimap, and you don't see any in the area. Yeah, there's still one more artillery piece. It's just over here. But it takes a good few minutes to get to it. As you can tell. This thing is very slow. And as you can tell, 81 miles an hour. Yeah. This thing ain't exactly blessed with top speed. So at this point I spot the artillery piece and I think, okay, I can get angles on this. So I turn the plane to the right and then come in at a different angle, so that way the rear gunner can get gun depression to shoot at the artillery piece. And there we go. And that is pretty much that. I spend the next few minutes trying to make my way over to the hidden ground targets, which are just over the riverside to the left of where the enemy bomber currently is. But I don't get there in time, for obvious reasons. So like I say, if you're a collector, This thing will sit nicely in your hangar. If you're a dealer kind of person, this thing will work great in ground forces. I'm fairly certain of that. Otherwise, if you're none of those two, I won't bother. It's just too much of a pain in the arse to get something this slow, this limited in its capability in ARB, and even then, the modern radar SPAAs in ground forces can and will lock you up and wipe you out the sky. So it has its use, but it's very limited. And personally, I wouldn't go for it. But I wanted this thing in my collection for nearly 5 years, and I finally got it. But anyway, I'm going to let you guys off. I hope you enjoyed today's review on the Po-2, and I will catch you all on the next one.